KCAAradio.com.
Live and in color from the NBC News radio broadcasting studios of KCAA, 1050 AM, 102.3 FM, and 106.5 FM, located in beautiful Southern California, and in parallel from the Turf's Up radio studio in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Thanks for tuning in to the Water Zone show this evening. Welcome back to the second half of the Water Zone with Chris and Rob, and hope everybody's having a good afternoon or evening or morning, depending where you are in this glorious world. We have a special guest. His name is J.P. Robinette. He's the engineering manager and construction manager for a project in California called Sites Reservoir, and it's pretty exciting. He's been on our show a couple of years ago when they were initially working on some things and brought really good insight, and we thought we'd get an update because in California things take a long time to get approved and built. Could be 15, 16, 20 years before a project really comes to fruition as far as being completed. So, JP, welcome to the show again.
Thank you, Robert and Chris. It's a pleasure to be here on behalf of the Sites Project.
For the listeners that we didn't have way back then and the new ones we have today, maybe you can give us a little background on what directed you to come to this industry to do what you're doing.
Absolutely, yeah. Water is pretty central to everything I've ever done in the engineering space. I'm from a small town in Southern Oregon that had been plagued by sort of water crises, agricultural community, and specifically it's the Klamath Basin in 2001 experienced a major water crisis, and I got to see kind of firsthand what some of the kind of infrastructure and permitting and just kind of complex web of challenges can do to a small community of people. And it just inspired me to get involved. I spent a few years sort of in the oil and gas and energy spaces, but always around water, and then was able to find my way back into a project like Sites that has a significant impact and potentially moves the needle, helping to avoid some of those situations I experienced firsthand.
Welcome to the show, JP. So for those of us in the California water industry, so to speak, especially Rob and I on the Water Zone here, we've been following the Sites project for several years now. We know quite a bit about it. We've had you on the show before, as Rob alluded to, and just like him, I can't remember when that was, but it was a ways back there. But I'm just so happy that we're here going to get an update on it. So, kind of what is the Sites project, if you will, kind of, maybe kind of a broader view of it to start with, and then we can get into a little bit more detail, if you will, JP.
Sure, like kind of everything in California, I'll start by describing how you get there by a freeway. So you drive up from Sacramento about an hour north, and you see a sign on the freeway for Maxwell, California. The Sites Reservoir would be about 10 miles west from there. So it's in the foothills of the Coast Range. There's a sort of natural bowl there that's been studied for the last 60 plus years as a potential site for a reservoir. Initially, some of those plans were sort of, I think, released in Water Bulletin number 3 from DWR. So this has been around for a while. It's an off-stream reservoir. So what we're proposing to do is use existing infrastructure, 2 existing canals and 2 diversion facilities that exist on the Sacramento River, one at Red Bluff and the other at Hamilton City. Those existing diversions actually have really state-of-the-art fish screens and pump stations already, so they're safe diversions. We would divert water in the winter primarily when flows are really high in the river, sort of flood flows. We're expecting that as a state we're going to get a lot more of our precipitation as rainfall, and sites has really helps capture some of that rainfall. It's off stream, like I say, so we divert through those existing facilities down to the site's reservoir area, where we'll build 2 new pumping and generating stations to actually fill the reservoir. We are going to need to construct 2 main dams and 9 saddle dams and dikes that would sort of encapsulate this 1.5 million acre foot per foot proposed reservoir. So by our totals and calculations, we assume it's about the 7th largest reservoir in the state. And so it really does move the needle on water storage.
How, in terms of, total acreage or acre feet of water, as a percent of, like California's or Northern California's water, this seems to be at 1.5 million acre feet, adding a good substantial, is that 10%, 20% of the total? What is it about?
I'm not really, I don't have the percentage off the top of my head, but what's unique about sites, I think, is that I think that percentage gets a lot higher in dry years.
Yeah.
It's really designed to be a dry year supply project for a lot of our participants, which is when the portfolio for them really shrinks. When we're in droughts, there's really not a ton of options for some of our participants. And sites, we're intending to store water in those wet years and release it in dry years. Now, our participants get to decide when they take their water, but I assume that a lot of them will take their water in dry years when they really, really need it. So I don't have a percentage, but I'll say the cool thing about our project is that that percent goes up in dry years.
When you talk about participants, can you identify a bit more who those are? Is it mostly ag? Is the beneficiaries?
We're a really diverse group of participants. So, like any project of scale, we have sort of federal funding partners, state funding partners, and then we have what I call our participants. And as of right now, about 65 to 70% of our funding is going to come from water agencies, irrigation districts around the state. So I think at the moment, about 25% of our participation is north of Delta and about 75% is south of Delta. Probably similar percentages on ag and 25%, 75% M&I, municipal industrial. Many of our participants serve both municipal and ag users. But just to give a few examples of some of our largest participants in the project, we have actually Colusa County is a major participant. That's where the project will be located. They're both on our board and plan to receive storage and water from sites. That's a good example of a north of Delta partner, Glen Colusa Irrigation District. And then when we go south of Delta, we have Metropolitan Water District of Southern California.
Yeah.
They're a big participant. San Bernardino Municipal Water District, and a few others down here as well. And so, yeah, like I say, a very diverse group of participants.
Who governs the project? I mean, who's in charge of it all?
Yeah, so in 2010, a Sites Joint Powers Authority was formed. It is made up of 9 agencies, all of whom have their service area in the Sacramento River watershed. And so it's really a local board on our project, and that is the actual applicant for Prop 1, the applicant for the water right, the owner of the project. And they will ultimately execute contracts to cover the cost share and allocate the benefits of the project. So that's the Sites Joint Powers Authority. And some of their membership, again, I mentioned Colusa County, they're on that board as well. Local irrigation districts, GCID, the Tehama-Colusa Canal Authority. And then additionally, there's some partners down in the Sacramento area. So we have City of Roseville, Placer County Water Agency, and City of Sacramento and Sacramento County
When, when
water.
we talked at the recent San Bernardino County Water Symposium, Wade Crowfoot, as you know, was there, and he's the Secretary of Natural Resources. And he gave a speech a little about what was going on. But maybe for our listening audience, can you tell us where we are and what some of the standing issues are still happening? I'm sure there's people that are not happy about it, but in your view, what do you see? And I know the state wants to go ahead with this no matter what, and they'll figure a way to do it. But how do you see it?
Well, we've sure appreciated the support of the secretary and the governor on our project. We were beneficiaries. We're actually the first project to comply and be selected as complying with SB 149, which was some judicial streamlining legislation that the governor put in place. It allowed us to put a timeline on our CEQA lawsuit, which has been extremely helpful. The project is currently at a point where, we're really finalizing our permits and agreements that are going to be needed for all of our participants, all of their home boards, to make a decision on sites later next year. The last key permit that we see, and an important component to a project like ours, is securing a water right. So we're currently going through a hearing process with the State Water Resources Control Board, with the goal of wrapping that process up and if we're successful, being ready to start the process of home board decision making. So, agencies around the state, I'll just pick one out, San Bernardino would come and take up the sites project as soon as all those permits and agreements are in place, and make their decision. That's going to be a major moment for our project. We're hoping that all of that can get done so that we can break ground in 2026. That's our goal.
A lot of controversy is like kind of led up to where we are today, right? There's been some controversy around it. And, as we've been following this, a lot of people saying how long it's taken, why has it taken so long? But application approvals wise, I mean, you guys got to be getting to the end here, right? The EIR is done, it's completed. I know that we spoke on previous episodes of the Water Zone about how the state and federal agencies have started to work together better. There was even a little bit of help, to rush things along at the latter part of last year. The way you feel today, JP, do you feel confident that this current, the current velocity is going to stay and you're going to get started when you want to?
The short answer is yes, I do feel confident, and kind of what backs that confidence. And I think as sort of a technical person and someone who is responsible for providing information and supporting decisions, what's most important, I guess, to me and the team is that we get to a point where it's all on the table, and the participants understand the remaining risks and the existing permits and kind of some of the uncertainties. This is a big decision. And so what we're trying to do is sort of empower that decision, make sure that we have the information to support it, that we've done the work, that we've coordinated and communicated and built understanding with all the folks who need to be brought along, and that decision can be made and then the project can move forward. Because once that decision is made, I think the question sort of shifts from if to when. Because then, each year of delay can cost you over $100 million in escalation, and just time is certainly money, and when it comes to delivery. So I think that, while it has taken a long time to get to where we are today, a lot of us on the project really think of the starting gun as being 2010 when the JPA formed, not really Bulletin 3 that I mentioned earlier. The key thing for this project coming together, in my mind and in others, has really been the local leadership and sponsorship. And so once that starting gun went off, I think that there's just been a tremendous amount of progress made in the last 14 years. And I think as frustrating as it can be to delay and wait, I think spending your time making a good decision is prudent. And then once you've decided, I'll tell you what, and this is what I get excited for, shifts to delivery. And delivery is about speed, efficiency, and decision making. So um, we sit right now on the precipice and kind of an overlap of this sort of ending of the planning phase and the beginning of the execution phase and delivery phase, and it's extremely exciting.
I know you had mentioned earlier that you guys are negotiating buying water rights from people. And yes, there are probably people that have agreed to it. And yes, there's people who probably don't agree to it. Is the state ever thinking to do eminent domain on the properties?
Yeah, so what's interesting about our project is from a water right perspective, we aren't looking to purchase water rights from people. What we're actually doing is doing a project application for a new water right, a new winter water right. And so, we have to make the case that there's water available for that. And we of course feel good about that, and we're talking about that with the State Water Resources Control Board right now in this hearing process. And there's panels of experts talking each day on this and discussing and debating the merits of that analysis. But we are not required to buy these from folks at this point. We will be going through the process of acquiring property for siting the facilities and the reservoir footprint and things like that. So that's yet to come, although some of that work has started. We've gone down the road of an early acquisition program. I mentioned the overlap of phases. We can't wait for everything. So there's been a small amount of activity around buying property that's on the critical path where there's willing sellers and things like that. So, yeah, hopefully that answers your question, Robert.
Yeah, it does. I'm amazed at this project. When I've heard about it before I met you years ago and stuff, but for our audience, they're the first storage project in California, which is the largest surface storage facility since, like, I can't pronounce that other place, New Melanos or
Yeah,
Melones?
New Melones. New
Yeah, that was in
Melones. Yeah.
1979, I believe. So this is a big deal, and it's something that we really need. And, Chris and I always say at the end of our show, please help keep our planet green or blue, because if you don't have blue, you don't have green. And that's an important factor. And I think the more people understand what this project is and truly understand the future need of balancing between drinking water and life and agriculture and everything else, they need to put that all into perspective. Because one day, if we screw up, there's not going to be much water left, and that's a scary thing. The people that have lawsuits issued against the project, they worry about lots of different things. One of them was, if it's being a shallow reservoir, will sites be a botulism threat to waterfowl? I'm sure that's one of their concerns. And do you know how somebody is addressing those questions?
Yeah, and I'm not really a water quality expert, but I will say that we have issued one of the most comprehensive environmental analysis ever done, and we've also continued that work even beyond the environmental document and kind of are making a case in front of the water board about this as well. I do remind people, I think people don't realize how big and deep this reservoir really will be. I think when they think of the Coast Range and an off-stream storage project, they might not sense that in reality our reservoir will be up to 250 feet deep. This is not a small reservoir. The tallest dam is 287 feet tall. And so there's a significant volume of water here. I think that one thing that continues to be studied is just that this reservoir, if to be cost effective, needs to be used and needs to be cycled quite often. So we do imagine that this reservoir volume will go up and down maybe more than most reservoirs, just because this water, to really help this pay off, we need people to use it. And so all that being said, I think our studies, I'd have to really dig in a little deeper, Robert, but I think that it's a pretty deep reservoir. It's managed for water quality, and our regulations, a very comprehensive analysis, but I expect our regulations will sort of be state of the art too in terms of water quality. And we're lucky enough, I think, to come of existence or come of age in a time when science and technology are really amazing. And so our ability to monitor and manage this reservoir should really be second to none.
Yeah, sure. Considering everything that goes into this, JP, a lot of work, right? And as my dad would say, if it was easy, boy, everybody'd be doing it, right? So,
Yeah.
but there's still some, are there still some unsettled issues, JP? Are there still people opposed to this? And if so, why? I mean, early on in the project, we were reading about stuff like, the greenhouse gas issue, I think that Rob had just brought up, and impact to disadvantaged communities, perhaps, and, cutting corners here and there. Those were the common themes of the opposition. Is there still opposition, JP?
Absolutely. And I expect, there's so much passion out there for different subjects and so much interest and care in our state. And, it can be challenging, and the amount of information and kind of this complicated and in-depth analysis that was done cuts both ways. I mean, folks have a hard time getting their arms around it, and thousands of pages and lots of doctors and doctors of this, doctors of that, and all that. It becomes quite complicated. And so, there's always concerns and competing interests, and I suspect those will continue. And in my mind, the word that comes to mind is trust. We have got to build trust as an agency. We're a relatively new agency. We don't have, 100 years of operating experience and that we can point to with folks and say, look, we'll do what we say we're going to do. But the types of commitments that we've made to the environment, the amount of water that's been set aside for the environment, present great opportunities. And then the amount of, just the combination of this group that's come together to build this project also presents great opportunities to do good. And I'm optimistic. I mean, the people I work with on a day-to-day basis are really committed. They're really dedicated to upholding their commitments that they're making through these documents and through these resolutions. And I feel a personal obligation as the engineering construction manager, because this is where a lot of this plays out. I mean, you talk about greenhouse gases, we've made a net zero commitment. Well, that's going to be hard. That doesn't mean you can just do whatever you did on the last job. We're going to have to get creative in order to do that. So, I think the way that we overcome some of the opposition and build trust is just through doing what we're going to do and continuing to show that we're worthy of that trust.
It seems projects, I know you said they put some procedures in place to speed up the process, but I still see like the Carlsbad desal plant was like 18, 19 years from the time they thought about it to the time they could get it approved and built. I guess it has to have that, and you have to let the public comment on all this stuff. But what happens when you get a situation that, like what Sites is, you have people who don't want it, they're complaining about it, yet they want water. They need water. They need for their life, whether it's for agriculture or anything else, mostly for their life. They need the water. And do you think the state does enough disseminating information to the ratepayers so they understand what's happening? A bad example of that I'll use is because I lived in California before, and you currently live there, was the Train to Nowhere, where they spent $400 million on PR, and it's still not done, and it's not going to be super fast train yet. So what happens? You know, I know the federal
Hmm.
government gave what, the $67 million recently to the project. That's great.
Hmm.
But how can you, not you personally, but how does the system make people really aware of it instead of just sending, you know, this should be there more news conferences. You know, they put stuff in their bills when the water bills go out. I don't know if half the people even read those things. They just throw it away. Oh, I got to pay the bill. About it. Oh, done. How do you see getting more information so people really understand the purpose and need for this? And the longer we wait, the worse it's going to be.
That's a tough one. I think that, you know, the more the word gets out, the better. I think that, you know, I really always feel like it's on the project sponsor to get materials out that are digestible, that are understandable, that, you know, make a compelling case and are clear and concise. I mean, I think that the risk sometimes is in the water industry, we can be a little bit, um, we feel and are very passionate because water is so critical that everyone should just get it. And I don't think that's true. I think people have a lot going on in their lives and don't really think about it all that often. And you know, it's unfortunate, but the reality is, you know, we are all very fortunate. Or when we turn the faucet, water comes out, and so it's really hard. It's really hard to create. You know, a desire or a need to be informed. Um, you know, I really believe that there's a couple of things that are needed for generational projects to happen. I think one is that you have to involve all generations. I mean, you talk about this project, and in reality, you know, it's 100-year plus asset here we're talking about. So it's not just us; it's the next generation and the one that follows it and the one that follows it. I mean, you're talking about great grandkids here that are going to be involved in the benefits of this, or dealing with the issues we create, right? And we've sort of seen that on other projects.
Yeah.
And so when you talk about something like that, I think it becomes a little less about the sort of technical information dissemination and all that stuff. That's important, and they've got to have that work right. That's mandatory. You have to do thorough analysis. But what I think is challenging, is, you know, people forget about drought. People sort of move on from drought, and they think it'll never come back. And you know, we just need to be reminded. We should look at pictures. We should be reminded of the economic damage and things like that, and just kind of why we're out there trying to get this done.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you know, that's hard. That's hard in a busy world. And the last thing I'll say is, you know, it's become hard in this state, I think, to believe that things can get done. And you know, I think that's one of those things that you know, you can't get a message out that just says believe, but you know, just believe it, that we can do things in this state. We're a huge economy. We're a powerhouse, and some of the people in our state are phenomenal, and some of the technology that we're able to bring to the table is second to none. So yeah, it's just a message of hope and belief. It's like, let's get this done. Let's try to move forward together. And then someone's got to make a decision, Robert and Chris. That's the hard part. And at the end of the day, so there's trade-offs. There's trade-offs in this stuff.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Two quick questions. We'll sneak in one from Chris, one from me, and wrap it up. Chris, you have any last comments or
Well,
questions?
yeah. So you know, looking forward, you were just mentioning generational projects, right? Is sites enough? I mean, is it, you know, is this the end of it? What else does California need moving forward? Like, kind of take it, if you will, JP, just give us a little forward-looking view from your standpoint.
Yeah, I mean, the I have, I'm not a water planner. I'm an engineer. I'm a delivery guy, construction engineering, capital projects. But if you look at, I have been privileged in the last couple years to spend a lot of time with water planners and looking at their urban water management plans and all those things. And in my experience, they know what they need. They've done a great job of laying out what they need. And it's often a combination of things, some conservation, some new projects, some new supply, some rehabilitation work. There's a ton that needs to get done. And what I consistently hear, because I've been also very lucky to get to do plenty of speaking engagements, is where I've met some of you actually, is that most of them feel it's an all of the above type approach. They need water storage north of Delta. They need water storage south of Delta. They need surface water storage. They need aquifer type storage. They need injection. They need recycled water. And each agency is very unique in what they have in their portfolio. So I don't know if that answers. There's no silver bullet. What we really need is every agency to plan and deliver for their customers.
Do their part. Yep. Rob?
Yep.
Well, that was part of my question. I was going to ask. That's okay. You answered it. So, one, we appreciate you coming back on the show and talking about what your work is and how the project is coming. It's to me, the more people should know about it, because they're misunderstanding what's going to happen with it. So we do appreciate you coming on, and anytime you want to come back, give us more updates, we'll be love to have you.
Hey, thank you very much.
One more quick thing, JP, if you would, if some of our listeners want to find out more, if they have some curiosity, where can they go to find out more about the Sites project?
Yeah, our website is great. We're a very transparent organization. You can find all of our materials on sitesproject.org.
Perfect. All right. I appreciate it. JP Robinette, Engineering and Construction Manager for the Sites project. Thanks for coming on the Water Zone. Great rest of the day to you.
All right. Thanks for having me.
Hello, you're here because you want to grow your business and you're interested in seeing how adding outdoor lighting installations as a new service offering might help. Not only is adding lighting an easier way to add new revenue, it's also a great investment for your homeowners, increasing their property value by up to 20%. And because customers can easily see the difference lighting makes, they're likelier to sign on the dotted line and then brag to their neighbors about it, increasing your profitability. So how do you get started? Well, you've already got a truck, you've got most of the tools, and you also have a full list of prospects. Start by reviewing past projects. Identify customers, friends, or relatives who might benefit from lighting and could become an advertisement for other homes in the neighborhood, since a good installation can earn a lot of referrals. Consider giving a discount in exchange for using the project in your marketing efforts. And be sure to take before and after pictures. With your first couple of projects, ask lots of questions. What do your customers want in their lighting project? Common goals include illuminating an outdoor seating area, spotlighting unique features in the landscape, lighting pathways, or adding nighttime curb appeal, but you won't know until you ask. What's the budget? If there isn't one, put together two versions of the proposal, simple and full coverage. You can always land somewhere in the middle. Where is the power source located? What is the function of the space? Are there plans to expand the space or add more lighting in the next 2 to 3 years? Does the community have any lighting restrictions? Look at other houses in the area with lighting. Look for gaps in coverage or dark spots and think about how that could be solved when installing your first project. Always check local codes and permit requirements before starting a project. Some locations require a certified electrician on the project, and insurance coverage is recommended. For any landscape contractor, outdoor lighting is an exciting add-on to grow your business, keep your crews busy, and generate more revenue. Online or in-store, SiteOne has the resources you need, including products and training, as well as technical and design support. Visit SiteOne today to learn more and get started in outdoor lighting.
Welcome back to the second half of the Water Zone show with Chris Davey and myself, Rob Starr. Hope everybody's having a good day, evening, or morning, depending where you are in this world. Anyway,
Pretty interesting conversation with Mr. Robinette. We've known him for a couple of years now, and he's a good man. And that project really needs a lot more PR and promotion because it's really going to help collecting water for us and storing water. We definitely need that in California. So, Chris, what do you think?
Yeah, I tell you, we meet so many great people, Rob, at events. Especially this past year, it's been fantastic. And I know for the rest of the show here, you and I are going to take a little retrospect at what happened in 2024. But for just a note about J.P. Robinette, a sincerely accessible person for sure, right? And I'm just going to tell our listeners, right, if you go to the site website, a fantastic website, a lot of information on there, but there's a report, a two-pager if you print it out, from the Army Corps of Engineers, and it was done earlier this year, in 2024, back in the summer or just before summer. I think I can't remember the date on it exactly, Rob. Maybe you remember, but if you want a good summary, what's going on, a lot of information, where it's located, what the funding is, how many people were involved, all the infrastructure that's going on with it, what this water storage is and what are the conveyance and everything else, all that stuff is on that short report. So as a synopsis, it's just a great place. But I want to say again, JP was fantastic. Just went along with doing this interview and was excited about it, and it showed in what we just played.
Yeah, he's definitely a good guy to hear from. We have coming up in a couple of weeks Wade Crowfoot, who's the current California Secretary of Natural Resources, and he's working closely with the project with J.P. Robinette. So that should be a good follow-up with the Secretary, and we're very pleased to have him on. He's been on also before, and again, same personality as JP, wants to be very upfront and transparent. He's one of the better guys in government that I would trust. So we'll get a lot more information about sites and other projects that's happening. But over the year, we've been truly blessed by a couple of things, and I'll speak for me first. I'm blessed to have you as a co-host and as a producer with me on the show. I'm also happy to have Chris Austin on to do the water news, what's happening in California every week. And we're really much appreciated to all the listeners and our guests who's willingly wants to be on the show and comes on the show and works with us. And we appreciate that. Plus all our sponsors and such. And, it's been something that from a little thought on a napkin, making this after 10 years and over 500 something shows, and the 18 awards that we've acknowledged and received. We're very humble to that. And so, Chris, I want to thank you personally. Chris Austin, if you're tuned in, the same thing. And to all our listeners and sponsors, we do appreciate that. And we still try to hold a good show. And if you have any thoughts about you want us to do a little differently or changes, let us know. If you have some topics you think are good, or know anybody, even yourself, who want to come on as a layperson or just a citizen, and want to talk about some projects that may be affecting you or that you're concerned about, let's do that. Let's talk about it. I think that'd be just like having a cup of coffee or a glass of Coke or iced tea. I can't drink on the show. We're not allowed to, and I don't drink anyway, so that wouldn't work well. But do that. Drop us an email. Give us a call. We'd love to hear from you on your thoughts on any other direction change you'd like to see, or again topics that we may be missing. There's so many topics that it's hard to choose. We're backlogged into the weeks of guests and such, so we're very happy with that. Chris, any thoughts?
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Rob. I mean, I feel so privileged to host and produce the Water Zone every week with you. And just so our listeners know, we're going to continue this through 2025. We do have a lot of great ideas to add a lot more relevant content to the water industry as a whole. This show started off, 2024, Rob. This show started off almost 10 years ago, right, in 2015. Yep. So 2025 will be the 10-year anniversary for that. And how fortunate and thankful are we both that WaterZone is still going strong. Now approaching 250,000 followers and subscribers, and we go out every week, not only as a broadcast show, radio show, but also on 17 other different platforms as well. And that's something that we're pretty proud of. But I just want to mention one thing, and I know you've got. We want to talk about the other things that have happened this year with our awards and stuff, Rob. So I'll let you do that. But just to make a note, we are looking at 2025 as being a 10-year anniversary year, and we've got a lot of great things in store between shows. Rob and I work very hard on content and guests. And so there's going to be some great surprises coming up too. And Rob, no one else I wouldn't want to continue to do it with other than you, buddy.
Same thing back to you, buddy. One thing which amazes me is the guests we had. One of the changes that we did that were added to the show is that we started doing series of stories. We're doing one. We did one with the FBI, with the cyber security. And did that, and we're doing one now with a company who's a consortium who's doing water reuse, and that's been good. And the people that have been on are amazing. I mean, we've had former vice presidents of the country. We've had Robert F. Kennedy Jr. We've had Scott Pruitt from the EPA when he was under Trump. Senators, congressmen, U.S. congressmen. I can go down the list. Professors, scientists, authors like Seth Siegel. He wrote several books about water in Israel and what's happening. That amazing person. We had a gentleman named Tom Lucas, who is from Performance Nursery. John Farmer, who is the former Irrigation Association Government Affairs Director. We also had a couple of weeks ago when I was at the IA show, Irrigation Association show, we had Miss Raskin on, Natasha, who is the CEO of that. We had the head of Ron Burke from the Alliance for Water Efficiency. I mean, we can go down the list of people that have been on the show, notable people, a lot of major water districts, people like Stephanie Dyer and some other people. Heather Dyer, I'm sorry, Stephanie Dewar. I always kind of mix them up together. They're very nice women, but I mean, we can go down the list of the people that we've had on the show, and it's been simply amazing. And things that we were never known or we were never privy to comes alive with these people, and they bring their stories. And also what we like to ask them is, and you've all heard it, is what did you do? What drew you to the water industry? Because there's so many stories. Not everybody started out wanting to work in the water business. Far from that. And then they got hooked into it, and that's where it is. But yeah, it's just amazing the people that we've had on, and it's been great. We're very fortunate that we're still going. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, the kind of content that we started off with, which was, talking about the drought, right, back 9 years ago. It's all about the drought, right? That was it.
We even had that as an introduction song for the show. It's all about the drought. The drought. I didn't sing it, but
I was just going to mention that, and of course we can mention the person that sat in the seat for the first year or so of the Water Zone back in 2015 through early 2016, which was Mr. Mike Barron, who you and I keep in contact with regularly, and is still a wonderful colleague and friend of both of us.
Right.
But back since then, I mean, look at the stuff we're into now, Rob. The decarbonization issue, the whole produced water sector, which in and of itself can be a show just by itself, right? All the water reuse.
And we're doing a series of that as we speak.
Exactly. I was going to mention that, and that's part of the. That's why we're kind of putting these things and folding them into a series, right? So that we're leading each of these subjects and each of these massive content into a series so that people can keep track of it, right? And And even far beyond that, I mean, we're going into the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals as they came out, and in COP29 and all the stuff that we, kind of without giving it away to our listeners, we're going to have a bunch of guests coming up in 2025 to discuss that sort of stuff. One more thing, Rob, I'm going to mention, because we've just had, we had a great guy on a while ago with looking at Arctic water as a solution to get pure fresh water to countries, transporting it to countries where there is true water scarcity. And we've got another guest coming up that is in that same line of work as well. And we're going to have him on, right? So exciting stuff, Rob, for sure.
And we're working behind the scenes on getting Aaron Brockovich on the show. A lot more notables.
True.
We have the world-famous artist Wyland, who has a partnership with the United Nations on water. And we work with him a lot for different projects. So, yeah, it's been fun. It's been good. I certainly learned a lot. We have a Professor Paula coming on who's going to talk about positive and negative charges of water that people never heard about. I mean, just interesting stuff. So, again, if the audience has any ideas of other subjects, or even if they want to call in themselves and talk about an issue or concern that they have, please do so, because we'd love to do that. And that's what I think makes the show great. It's all the people that listen to the show and all the people who've been on the show. We're just.
Should we call it a variety show, Rob? Should we call it a variety show, Rob?
I don't know. I'll have to change the music.
Well, I'll tell you, a lot of I'm going to tell you a couple of things that pop into my mind, right? That just popped out. We started out the year talking with the folks from CalWEP. Do you remember that, Rob? That was like January of this year. Tia Fleming, the executive director, right? Water Efficiency Partnership at CalWEP, the California Water Efficiency Partnership. All about public policy, the Public Policy Institute, rather, and reports that come down from the Legislative Analyst Office, and all that kind of stuff. By the way, just as a secret test here, or a thing for you, I don't know if you remember this, but do you remember what CalWEP was called before it was called the California Water Efficiency Partnership? Do you remember? It was called the California Urban Water Conservation Council. Yep. I knew you can remember. I knew you probably wouldn't get it right in the top of your head, so I apologize for putting you on the spot.
Well, I needed to start. That's what they gave me.
Yeah. Yeah, and that was one. It was early in the year, but it was one of the most interesting ones I have. And by the way, we can tell our listeners that we are looking. The CalWEP has a new director of programs. Her name is Melissa Matlock, and again, behind the scenes, we're looking to get her to come on later on in the year, probably in the springtime. And just another note, as all these things are popping in my head, Rob, at the EPA WaterSense meeting in Las Vegas this year, where you were. Remember that CalWEP won the 2024 EPA WaterSense Excellence Award. Do you remember? Yeah, they were there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. And that was a great conversation. They were very nice, and they're associated with AWE, Alliance for Water Efficiency. And then we have our friend, our lady friend in Chicago. You know who that is?
Nope, can't think of that off the spot.
They do a lot of shows with us. I'll give you a few minutes to think about that. That's the Twister. She's a really nice lady, and we had one of her gentlemen on the show a couple of times. Give you a hint?
No. Still drawing a blank. Somebody close to us, you mean, or are you talking about Mary Egger?
No. They have an organization about water that they publish all the time. They send out. You get the emails all the time. We get so many of them. It's kind of hard to keep track. We could use some.
Yeah. Can you put
assistance in that? But I'll give you that.
Yeah.
But
I know. Oh my gosh, Rob, I was thinking completely in another direction. You're talking about Shana Shea from the Water Report, yeah?
Yeah.
I missed that again.
Yeah.
Bingo. Do
Well,
I get a
she was
prize?
great. You get a prize. I'll send it. I'm going to send it to you. Yeah, and
I was thinking in a completely different direction.
You're going to get a prize. You're going to get a prize. I'm not going to tell you what it is, but you'll get it in about 2 weeks or so. Sorry, I'm older.
Well, I'll tell you, man.
Yeah,
it is. I was literally off on a completely another track. So well, I was trying to figure that out, but yeah, and then just as I was saying, I'm just gonna mention a couple of things that pop out to me because we got a few minutes left here. But John Farner, right,
Yes.
has been on our show several times, not only in his former role as the IA Government Affairs Director for the Irrigation Association, but also now a couple of times with the Babbitt Center, and he was the one that connected us or turned us on to Claremont Lincoln University, where we had Lynn Pretty on just a few weeks ago. So I mean, just terrific guests and people with a lot of knowledge, and they spread the word about the water zone and tell us about interesting content. We follow it up, and we'll continue to do that.
One of the great ones, and he's a good friend of mine. I serve on a couple of committees with him at the Building Industry Association. Charlie Wilson, who's the head of the
Oh man, yeah, absolutely, yeah.
He is.
All the drought resilient stuff that he covered.
Yeah, and very well spoken and good friend, and he's been great. I mean, I don't think we had a bad guest on the show. I guess I was the first bad guest on the show when we did our first show. We had so many problems with microphones and connections and everything else. It was kind of atrocious, and it was kind of a bad entrance support. But I guess I can be happy because we didn't have the audience that we have today back there when we started. I think we had maybe 5 listeners when we first started, but now it's grown pretty strong.
Oh yeah, it has indeed. When we even when I first started, right? I mean, we're in the little studio there, and just so our listeners know, this is the 4th year that we have been doing the show from our home studio. Your home studio and my home studio. So we invested a little bit of moolah and set up home studios for us both, and it's worked out great.
And part of the reason that our listeners know is this: when we stopped going to the NBC studios because it was COVID, and people put their mouth on the microphone and the windscreens, and we didn't want to die catching COVID, so we decided we'd build studios and do it. So it's been great.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, well, before you lead us out, Rob, I just want to remind the listeners that if they want to listen to any of the content that we've discussed that's been in the past year in 2024, they can go to waterzone.podcast.toro.com, and they're all listed on that page, and you can download or listen to any of them at any time.
Or they can go to kcaaradio.com or any one of the 7 different podcast media platforms that we utilize. So. That'd be great.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, at the end of the show, Chris, you are an amazing man. I'm glad to call you my friend and my producer and co-host and all of this stuff. And the things that we do have to tell our audience is one thing that's important. Please help keep our planet blue. Because if you like green, you gotta have blue. That's right. So thank you very much for tuning in. We're gonna have a great show next week. Have some great guests. And you have a nice weekend. And if you're back east in the cold, have fun in the snow. All right, have a good one. Good night, everybody.
NBC News on KCAA Loma Linda, sponsored by Teamsters Local 19.